Welcome, my survivors. Thank you for joining me for this week. My name is Nichel Anderson. I'm the host of my show, Surviving Your Journey Towards Success, where we focus on strategies, both in our career and our personal lives. Thank you for joining me today for episode 14, entitled Corporate Toxicity, Corporate Bullying, Abuse, Business Strategies for You to Succeed. So we're focusing, of course, the workplace today, and I want to be able to give this to you. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So let me start off by saying, in this day, I am thankful to the Prime Creator of all things, that I give thanks for this blessing and opportunity, that I will use it for the greater good. So welcome again, my survivors of the journey of this podcast that aims to inspire and motivate you to continue to have joy, peace of mind, and to your success. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, something just, continued to show up a few weeks ago that made me want to just focus on the workplace. In the corporate workplace, or even if it's not considered a corporation and it's a smaller type business that you work in or that you lead as a leader or manager in, at the end of the day, toxicity can exist in any type of environment where you're dealing with different personalities. So let's just talk about first where outlining the toxicity that does exist that basically creates the abuse and the bullying. All right, it's not an easy topic to talk about it, but you know what? When you're on the journey, you have to survive. You have to, if you want joy, you have to address the things that might not be pleasant as drinking some medicine that is not tasteful, but it's going to be good for you later on. And that's why I'm here, just to help you to get the joy in your life and to have mental peace, because that's important. And in corporate toxicity, it really do attacks your mental peace. So I just want to kind of outline some things here. WBI is the World Bullying Institute. So their definition of workplace bullying, if you want to identify, well, is that happening in my place? Maybe I don't realize it. Because when you in an abusive relationship, the person that's being abused doesn't really understand that they are, because they're actually in the victim state. They have to come out of that and be an observer to really identify, or someone that's outside of it will tell them, this is what's going on. You know what I mean? So that has happened before, right? It's the same thing here. So the WBI Institute basically says workplace bullying is repeatedly health harming mistreatment of one or more persons. They are the target. And pretty much the contact of this abuse is threatening, humiliating, or intimidating. Okay, work interference such as sabotaging, which prevents work from getting done. And of course, what I like to hone on, that is the silent attack, is verbal abuse. Most people that conduct that to the other person, to the victim in this case, pretty much is very skillful in that, because they use different words and they come back with a different personality. So you're kind of confused that the actual person is abusing you, creating this toxicity, okay? But let's go ahead and move forward from that. So also I want to talk about an article that I have read over, but this one I want to focus on another statistics from the WBI. And they're saying that in 2014, the WBI conducted a workplace bullying survey, and I will have this link for you to look at the results more in detail in this description of this episode. So in 2014, WBI conducted this survey and identifying how many people in the workplace were being bullied, right? Or were being pretty much harmful health-wise because of the toxicity in the workplace. So they assessed this particular survey, and what they've shown is that workers are affected by some type of bullying in the workplace. Okay, and so it was very detailed, and to show that, thinking about the actual survey, it might fluctuate the actual percentage, but at any rate, the link will be in the description for you to take a look at that to identify, basically what I'm saying. These incidents came up in a way that it showed that it was a consistent pattern and that a lot of people were suffering from it. Now, there's an article from Forbes magazine called "The Enormous Toll Workplace Bullying Takes on Your Bottom Line." They also indicated a high number of workers are affected by bullying as well. And so this can go on if no one's addressing it, right? And so the main point that I want to focus on now on this particular first kickoff of corporate toxicity and bullying that I will cover for the month of February, right, is that the important point is that you have to identify your stress level and that it is connected to the toxicity at your place of work, and how and what are you going to do about it. And before you could do that, you got to know the players. Who is conducting this type of toxicity? Okay. All right. And who are the players in the sense of their relationships to one another? Because believe it or not, when you're working with one another, somebody favor one person than the other. It should not happen. But in most cases in a toxicity, they always have their favorites in the sense that no matter what they do, they kind of not really take it to heart. And so other people suffer. So you have to make sure that you know who the players are and their authority and their influence. The second thing I want to kind of touch on that is that the HR, do you have a human resources department? Most corporations do, but still, as I mentioned before in a previous episode, the corporate environment is like politics. Now, some people might say it's local politics in a sense it's just as cutthroat as the big time. I think it's big time. I think it's big time than local politics. It's on a different level. It's high stakes, and the expectations of being at an excellent level is extremely high because of the amount of financial the financials that's coming in. And so what have you, you have that competition, you have that control that, I don't know, seduces people or influence people to do things that create what I listed from WBI that creates this toxicity. So how can you identify that in a sense that you can address it so you can stop the toxicity to the point that you're not so stressed out? We have to be careful. Now, I have read other articles that say, well, you should just, report to human resources and you do that. That would make you a target. So you got to know the proper way. I would even if you're not really sure, is to have a suggestion of having some type of feedback that employees can do to give the managers some feedback on what's going on without you really being tied to it, but they get the information. Then you can see the decisions. I made an episode a few weeks ago when I talked about prestige leadership. Prestige leadership do not tolerate toxicity. And if it drips in and initially they are not aware of it, as soon as they smell it, they get rid of it because they know it's not productive. Okay, both with team morale or just producing the business in a way that they get things done. So maybe suggest or maybe have a talk with different people, and then as a group, people suggest you don't want to come out as a target until you know who the players are, because sometimes in the corporate world you have one facade of a personality, but as soon as something has been pointed out that this is not good, this is bad or what have you, that personality can flip on you faster than a 360 in a sense of making that turn to that complete circle. So you want to protect yourself because this is your livelihood. And like I said, I had read an article before and they were saying, well, you can, before you get hired, before you in the interview, you can ask questions to find out about the culture. Let me put it like this. I disagree with that, because if you ask anything in a sense, I think it was something asked about the employee type, anything to try to find more of their rules and policies, whatever they tell you in the interview, that's what they want you to know. And so you just have to kind of pick on the cues. I say the safe way is to go to these employee review sites. And if you see the same pattern of employees that actually work there, they're teaching you, they're telling you the culture. And if it's 4 or 5 people saying the same thing, or 2 or what have you, if it's 2 or more saying the same thing, trust me, it's true. And then you can make a decision. This is where you want to go because they are being honest. Now, of course, you have that percentage of what people say disgruntled. But if it's more than 2, that's more than a coincidence. You understand? And so that's more safer than when you're in an interview trying to see if they're going to give you any cues. They're not going to tell you they're toxic. They love it. As long as that money coming in, they're fine with it. Okay? The abuse, it doesn't bother them, So you have to be more creative. Now, I do offer career consultations if you're actually in the environment and you see all of this and you want to make sure, because you got to be careful because it's your livelihood. And so I do free consultations for the first half hour just to kind of get a feeling for you, and then to help you of what the best way that I recommend or advise, and you could decide from there. But because it is difficult and it is hard and you spend so much time there. So let's get to my next point on this that I wanted to roll out is with corporate toxicity. Is a strategy that you can succeed, is what I just mentioned about if you, before you get hired, you could do the research on employee review sites. If you already hired and you're going through the drama and you want to know a way to get out of it or how to reduce that stress, again, it goes back to the players, but the strategy for you is to document everything. One thing I know about the corporate world is documentation, dates, details, focus on the facts is your best strategy. The second part of that, you have to measure your stress. If you're coming home upset, very upset, you're talking about it all weekend only for you to go back on Monday and deal with the same thing, you got to have an exit strategy. I know it's not easy to keep jumping here or there, but maybe move to a different department. You got to do something because long term it affects your mental peace, which is your joy. So you have to decide on that. So your task to dusk to dawn is basically what I feel that number one, you need to know the players. Who has the most influence? Who has the most authority? What has other employees' experience been with them? Have you heard anything that happened similar and then did this happen and that happen? Right? Because you got to protect your livelihood. That will end up hurting you. And if you focus hard enough and just think in a way of a strategy to maneuver around that, you'll come out successful. Okay? Number two, if you, like I said before, if you want to be able to do some research about the company and knowing before you get hired, or if you're already hired, in a sense, what would be the best strategy that you can network to move on, if that's the best thing for you, because most of us just can't jump up and move from job to job because this is bad, this is bad. No company is perfect, but you cannot survive in a sense of mental peace in a toxic work environment. You can't do it. You would be so horrible. That's why the numbers are so high when these industries and they doing these surveys. That's right. It's so many companies that does that and either get away with it, and how they solve it, they just hire a whole bunch of more people. And there's like a cycle where prestige leadership that's in a company will not have a high turnover. And they will have more happier employees, which create a happier environment, and that's your joy to your mental peace. It's a complete circle. And so that's what I suggest in your task to dusk to dawn, is to do those main two things. You should see an improvement. But again, working, at a job or what have you is very tricky. It's politics. You got to make sure you make the right decisions. You got to have a good attitude. In my book, Corporate America, Surviving Your Journey to Success, the first chapter I talk about is your attitude. And then I talk about interpersonal skills because it's an individual. And then it moves on to when you're working with other people. And if that person, which I touch on my EP that I say on my social media, which is basically emotional pain that they haven't dealt with, right? In order to sustain and push that pain back down, they feel inclined to do what we consider basically is abuse toxicity on the next person, especially if they are in authority. And you have to stand up to that in a sense that you smart about it, because you are working for someone else, and that is your livelihood. All right, so let me go ahead and wrap this up by your motivational takeaway. Pretty much what I want to say to you is, think of this. When we understand how restoration is the process in motion forward, we get to understand to not focus on what was lost externally or internally in us, but by spirit it will be restored to move you forward. And so basically that's the wisdom I want you to take away, and to understand that and know that it's a way out, and it's a way that you can work, okay, for your livelihood, for your family, and have a peace of mind. And when you get stuck in these types of toxic companies, it is a way out. You have to use strategy. and you have to consult with people that you trust and, implement that. All right. Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe to my podcast and share as well. My podcast homepage is Nichel Anderson, the number 7.podbean.com. So that's N as in Nicholas, Ichel, Anderson, the number 7.podbean.com. Also, my show is on iTunes. You can download it straight from the iTunes page. Also, you can go to my homepage on Podbean, connect and download iTunes from there as well. Follow me on social media. My official Twitter account is twitter.com/Nichel Anderson. Facebook. So that's facebook.com/Nichel Anderson fan page. And also visit my official website, which is nichelanderson.com. That's where you can learn more about the things that I do, my courses that I have, and as well as webinars at times that I do. And also you can find out any new updates of projects that I aim to create and produce. But mainly you can find out more information about my courses that I have, my classes, and sometimes future webinars that I do for free. This show notes will be provided for you that will list any information to read up on when you are able to do so, and any website links if mentioned in this broadcast. You can as well purchase my Corporate America Surviving Your Journey Towards Success book on Amazon, as well as my other book, Mitzrayim, a memoir. It is also available on Amazon.com, as well as any other book retailer that you prefer. All right, just to recap, some information on my podcast show, Surviving Your Journey Towards Success. Regular new broadcasts are Mondays by 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. Guest interviews are pre-announced as soon as confirmed. Now, if you want to be a guest speaker on my show that listeners can gain insight, be motivated, and encouraged about your message or product or service that you have that can benefit others, please complete a guest speaker application form. You can locate that on my Podbean homepage that houses my audio podcast. Okay, so that's nichelanderson7.podbean.com. Also, if you go to my official website, nichelanderson.com, and click on podcasts, you will see at the top menu to the right, if you own a PC, if you're on a PC or a Mac. If you're on a mobile phone, then of course you have to kind of maneuver a different way to see that menu, but you will see podcast show, and then that way you can see that link that will take you to complete the guest speaker application form. And I do get that and look that over. To get a response back that you are approved can take around about 48 to 72 hours, maybe longer depending on when you have submitted it, like on the weekend. Now, if you have any questions to answer during my podcast, you can send it to info@nichelanderson.com, or you can direct message me on Twitter or Facebook. Now, I'm also on Skype. Okay, so my Skype ID is Nichel.Anderson. Okay, so this concludes my podcast show today. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Please follow me on my social media and subscribe for future podcast airings of my show. My Twitter account is twitter.com/Nichel Anderson. Again, facebook.com/Nichel Anderson fan page. And also you can visit my official website, nichelanderson.com. There are also premium podcasts priced and provided conveniently online for easy access on nichelanderson7podbean.com, where it houses all of my podcast episodes. You can find that option for premium podcast where you will have access to get more of my content instead of the free episodes that I roll out weekly. And also I am planning on releasing short stories. I used to do that as well when I had that opportunity at sweet101.com as the columnist for the Harlem Renaissance. In between my research and my articles, I started like short stories, and people seem to enjoy those stories. And also that can tie into my other creative projects that I have going on as well, besides my courses that I have on my website, which is Dawn of New Day and Mole. So I am planning to do short stories from those types of productions and even new ones as well. And so I will basically have that type of content specifically for the premium paid podcast. Okay. So I plan on to have specifically for that type of literary creative side of me content available in the premium paid podcast. Okay. So please visit the show notes as well for each of my podcasts. It is located on the homepage. So concluding my podcast today, I would like to leave you with my message for you. Be you that strengthens and inspires your ability to be strong in your journey endeavor. It's a good thing towards your mental peace and joy, always to your success.